Okay, check 1, 2, test, test. All right, looking good here. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get this hearing started. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the City of Des Moines Zoning Board of Adjustment. This board has the power under Iowa law and the zoning ordinance of the City of Des Moines to hear and make decisions on requests for variances and exceptions from the regulations in the zoning ordinance, to review conditional use requests, and to consider appeals from any decision of city staff in the administration of the zoning ordinance. The members of this board are citizens of the City of Des Moines and have been appointed to this board by the City Council. The board members are volunteers and receive no compensation for their public service. I'm going to take a minute here and introduce our board members. On the audience's right is Tom DeCio. Next to him is Dave Gare. Next to Dave is Rhonda Cedillo. On the audience's left is Justin Gross. Next to him is Marlis Jones, and I'm the board chair, Mel Pins. This is normally a 7-member board, but we had one member that had resigned due to a move out of state, so we're waiting for a replacement there, but we got 6 of us today. I'll introduce our city staff who will be assisting us today with our process and procedure. First of all, the legal counsel for our Zoning Board of Adjustment to my left is Gary Guidelock. City staff that will be presenting and here for information today are Frank Dunn Young, Senior City Planner, Bert Drost, the Deputy Planning Administrator, and Eric Lundy, the Zoning Enforcement Officer. Our meeting moderator, just down here in front of me, is Mr. Tyler Hall. Now I'm going to go ahead and cover our meeting procedure. For some of you, this may be your first time in front of us. You may hope it's your only time in front of us. So we'll help you through the process here, but I'll go ahead and explain how the board works. The Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial board. This hearing will be conducted within the procedures and format as authorized by Iowa law and this city's ordinances. This meeting is open to the public, but the meeting is being recorded by both audio and video for a legal record of these proceedings. The board members have each received a copy of the agenda and the staff recommendations. A copy of this agenda and staff recommendations were available up here as you came in the door in the little black trays there. If you didn't get one of those yet, feel free to grab one. The board members, the board is required to base its decision on each item upon the criteria established by law for the type of relief sought by the applicant. The law applicable to each case has been identified in the written staff report. If the facts, as determined by this board, demonstrates that the criteria established by law for granting the relief has been satisfied, then the board must grant the relief. Otherwise, the board must deny the requested relief. Each item on the agenda will be announced in the order that it appears on the agenda. Items that are listed on the consent portion of the agenda, which is the first portion of our agenda, are not planned to be individually discussed. Rather, they will be considered for approval in accordance with the recommendation in the staff report, unless the appellant does not agree to the conditions recommended by staff, or if there's an individual in this audience or a member of the board that requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda so that a full discussion on the matter can occur. And I will come back to the consent agenda process here in just a little bit. For our regular portion of the agenda, after an item is announced, city staff will first give a brief overview of the appeal, and they will present any written comments that have been received prior to the hearing. Then the applicant or their representative will be allowed up to 10 minutes to present their appeal. We'll then move to the public comment portion of the hearing for that agenda item, and anyone who wishes to speak in support of the item, in opposition to that item, or even in neutrality of the requested appeal will be allowed up to 5 minutes each to present their comments. This will be their one and only opportunity to address the board in regard to the item at hand. Once all concerned citizens have spoken, the board will then ask any additional questions of city staff. Finally, the applicant will be given up to 3 more minutes for a rebuttal or other closing comments if they so choose. All speakers must only speak from the podium here at the front center of the room and begin their presentation by first giving both their name and address. And that address can be your business or residence as appropriate. in the event that you may need to be contacted for legal notices related to the outcome of this appeal. All speakers are requested to remain courteous and to focus their comments only upon those facts that demonstrate whether or not the criteria established by law have been satisfied. Speakers are also asked to ensure that they are respectful of time considerations. If necessary, the board chair will limit further comments by a speaker if they exceed their time limitation. The board chair will then close any further public comment on the agenda item, and the board will immediately deliberate the request and make a decision on the appeal. Please note that it takes at least 4 affirmative votes for any zoning appeal to gain approval. If your appeal is approved today, we would ask that you wait until at least about 1 week from today's hearing if you would need to contact the city's Permit and Development Center to obtain any necessary building or sign permits that are related to your appeal decision. This will allow the decision of this board to be documented in the form of what's called a decision and order. That will then be provided to you and city staff for the record. Any appeal that is approved by this board must be implemented, constructed, or otherwise utilized within 2 years of the date of the decision of this board, or such approval shall expire. Finally, the decisions of this board can only be appealed in the Polk County District Court. So if you believe you've been harmed by an error made by this board, your only remedy is to seek relief through the court within 30 days of the filing of the board's decision and order. If you believe the zoning regulations applied by this board are wrong, you may petition the City Council to change those regulations for future considerations. All material written or otherwise used today as part of any presentation is required to be part of the permanent record. So if you have anything you wish to present today with photos, drawings, or documents that you haven't already given copies of to staff, you'll need to do so. And you may contact city staff after the hearing if you'd like a copy of anything presented today. Finally, a few housekeeping items. Please avoid any undue conversation in the audience so as to limit any distractions during the hearing. You're doing fine so far. Please ensure your cell phone has been silenced. Good job as well. And if you might need to use the restroom at any time during the hearing, you can just walk through these doors, walk past the staircase. Restrooms are on your left. You don't have to go back downstairs. Subject to our hearing items, we may take a 5-minute break around 3 o'clock if that may be necessary. Okay, so that's our background on our hearing for today. So we'll start with a review of our agenda and see if we may have any changes to that. So Frank, I think you're up for bid on that.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. Staff is looking to have items 3, 4, and 5 put on the consent agenda.
Tyler, could you grab
These items include expansion of a conditional use at 5901 Fleur Drive. This expansion is occurring. The applicant is proposing to add a 800 square foot building addition to the existing gas station that's there. They would be tearing down the car wash to the south. And so as part of their expansion of the station, they would need to amend their conditional use to add to account for the additional 800 square feet. They've met all separation distances. Staff is looking to have them move to consent. Item 4 is located at 112 Southeast 4th Street, Unit 101. This is the location of the Twisted Vine Brewery. And recently, state legislation has changed the classification for liquor licenses. So the applicant, as a microbrewery, would need to obtain a Class C license, which allows for alcoholic liquor sales. And so the applicant intends now to serve alcoholic liquor as part of that, but in order to continue to operate, they must obtain the new liquor license. And to be consistent with our code, they would need to amend their conditional use to make that square. So staff is recommending approval of the conditional use. Item 5 is located at 111 East Grand Avenue, Unit 109. And this is the location of DSM Valves. It's an event space that operates today, and they are proposing to have sales of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer for on-premise consumption within their 1,350 square foot tenant bay. Currently, caterers are responsible for obtaining the appropriate requirements to sell alcohol. The applicant is proposing to amend the conditional use so they can capture those sales, but so they can also monitor the sale of alcohol to attendees at the events there. The events range from 1 hour to 3.5 hours in length is what's anticipated. And those are the 3 items that we are requesting be moved to consent.
All right. Frank, just one overall question on items 3, 4, and 5. Since you did have those on the regular agenda, was that generally because since they were related to alcohol and with an opportunity for the public to give comments ahead of time, is that why it's normally on the regular agenda?
That is correct. We would like to see what kind of representation from the community comes forth and what types of concerns are raised along with our discovery and due diligence of the proposal.
Okay, right. But from staff's perspective, since you didn't, at least prior to today's hearing, have any that input or any of your own concerns, that's why your recommendation is to move those to consent, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, so what we'll do with the audience here, again, to help you through this, so staff is proposing that we would move items 3, 4, and 5 to our consent agenda so that we might just give a blanket approval on those items subject to the conditions that staff's presented without having any public hearing on that, which would mean no opportunity for any input today. So before the board would consider moving these items to consent, I'm just going to take a poll of the audience. You don't have to say anything. But for item number 3, which would amend a conditional use for the gas station there at 5901 Fleur for an expansion to allow some sales of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer. Is there anybody in the audience who would object to us approving that item? If so, just raise your hand. That's all you would need to do at this time. Okay, seeing none. Item 4, a conditional use permit request at 112 Southeast 4th Street to amend an existing conditional use related to alcohol for some fabrication and production related to that type. Anybody here that would object us granting that conditional use for item 4? Okay, seeing no hands. Same for item 5, a conditional use request related to selling alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer for on-premise consumption at 111 East Grand, number 109. Anybody in the audience that would object us granting those approvals? Okay, if seeing none, anybody here at the board with any concerns or questions on 3, 4, and 5, just basic? If none, would there be a motion to move items 3, 4, and 5 to the consent agenda? All right, moved by Marlis. All right, and a second by Rhonda. All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, so motion carries 6-0. So now we'll go back to the actual consent agenda. Item 1 that was on consent is a conditional use request at 1907 Carpenter. Anybody here in the audience that would object us granting that? Again, just raise your hand, say aye. Seeing none, item 2 is a conditional use request at 217 East 2nd related to some parking lot use. Anybody object to that one? Okay, seeing none, then we have items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on consent. Unless the board has any other questions on those, would there be a motion to grant approvals on items 1 through 5 subject to staff recommendations? All right. Oh, she plays in well. Okay. All right, so motion by Marlis, second by Rhonda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. So if you were here for items 1 through 5, those have been approved, and in about a week, you'll get a signed copy of your approvals for your further use. So thank you for coming down today for items 1 through 5, and you're welcome to leave the hearing. We'll just take a moment here and let everybody get readjusted, and then we'll move on to our regular agenda. Okay, so item number 6 is a conditional use permit request at 2231 East University Avenue, and we'll have Frank give us some background on that to get us started.
Thank you, Chair. Item 6 is use of a 7,000 square foot tenant bay for limited retail sales use to include sales of alcoholic liquor, wine, and beer. As a limited retail sales use in an MX3 district, no more than 40% of the sales may be derived from alcoholic liquor, wine, beer, or tobacco products on the premises. I'm going to pull up some slides and show the layout of the property. The property in question is right here on the screen in yellow. It's on the south side of East University Avenue. And the site is formerly was the Family Dollar site. Next to it is a restaurant that intends to remain and is still in operation. Here's another view of the site, more from the eastern perspective. So the property is approximately 17,000 square feet in size. The retail strip is approximately 8,400 square feet in size. And so that tenant bay for Family Dollar does take up a large share of the building. And this is the site plan document submitted by the applicant. Aerial view. One thing I'll just back up and note on the aerial. What you'll see here is there is a restaurant retail use to the left, and then there's a commercial use there to the east. So east and west are commercial uses. Across the street there is the Anderson Erickson dairy use. And I'll zoom out a touch so you can see the entirety of the store layout. So as you can see, the applicant is proposing the liquor, tobacco, wine, and beer on the perimeters of the store with a kitchen, grocery towards the interior. They would have fresh produce as well, some soft drinks there on the periphery as well. So staff is, based upon the criteria, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use. The applicant has satisfied the necessary, staff believes the applicant has satisfied the necessary criteria. It appears to be an appropriate location. Appears to be an appropriate location that is appropriately separated from church, place of worship, schools, licensed daycare facility. It's believed that the applicant would safeguard the general health, safety, and welfare of the area. The proposed use has appropriate landscaping, building that buffers from the residential that would be primarily to the south, with the parking that would remain towards the north of the property. And one of the things that I would like to add is, as part of the conditions, the staff has looked at the hours of operation and have modified the what they believe would be appropriate for the area. The applicant had desired to be open from 8 to 12 a.m., 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., 7 days a week. However, staff felt that it was most appropriate that those hours be 8 to 10 p.m., Sunday through Thursday, and then on those weekend days, Friday and Saturday, that the 12 a.m. would be more amenable. More conditions. I'll zoom in on those. So 14 conditions in total. And so at any point in time that the use is deemed to be a nuisance, the zoning and enforcement officer could bring back the conditional use for reconsideration of the approval of the conditional use, particularly if they're violating any of the conditions or exhibiting patterns of a nuisance. And here is the consent map. And so this accounts for properties within 250 feet of the premises. So you see the properties that are in opposition that are in red, support in green, and the ones that are in white are unanswered. And I do want to...
Could we slow down just on those cards
Sure.
for a second?
Sure.
I know sometimes we said we don't have to spend a ton of time on things, but since those are real quick, just like to see what they say. Okay.
And I'm not sure if the letter was passed around up there or not, but I will get to the letter in a moment.
Sure, yeah, that'd be fine. Okay, so we got those two. What else do we have there for? Mhm. Okay. All right.
And here's the letter that is
Mhm.
from the adjoining property owner to the west.
Mhm.
I believe that it does.
Mhm. Okay.
And here is the neighborhood notice that was sent out by the business operator. And I received an email from the representative that there was not attendance at the neighborhood meeting that they held. What questions do you have for staff?
Thank you.
Do they meet the number of parking spaces for the size of the building?
The site as it exists today is still in operation, and at the time that it was approved, it was the parking was representative of the retail use that was in there in the restaurant. I don't know the exact numbers. The retail from Family Dollar to the retail of the grocery store would be equivalent. So the assumption is, I did not calculate that, it should be the same and meet those requirements.
It's always very, very full now. I can tell you because that's my drive, that's my path.
Okay.
And it's very, very busy.
Okay. But that's something that I could try to pull up while I'm sitting at the table over there for the rest of
Okay.
Related to that, if we were inclined to approve this use, then would they have to go, since it is somewhat of a change in use with a CUP, would they have to look at new site plan requirements or other changes in the ordinance that could require a closer look at that parking?
the site, from a building code perspective, wouldn't be considered a change of use.
Okay.
Some of the other triggers from a site plan perspective aren't being triggered. If they
Okay.
were doing a substantial investment, if the whole strip were to be out of use for 6 months or
Right.
longer, those would be triggers.
Okay, okay. Clear enough? What other questions do we have for Frank?
Hey, Frank,
Justin.
so my understanding is there was nothing from is the Fairgrounds Association, is that the neighborhood association there?
That is correct. I sent notices, went out to both Fairgrounds and Accent, as well as emails went out to both, and
And no response from
no
either?
response.
Okay.
You didn't get anything back from Accent?
I did not.
Frank, a related question here. You may or may not have referenced this, but just generally, especially with a few of the comment cards about, well, distances and there's other alcohol sales. As proposed and within the current zoning ordinance city code, the distance between this proposed sale of alcohol and other permitted alcohol sales, there's no issues with sufficient distance from existing alcohol sales or any like daycares or schools, things of that nature. Is that correct?
That is correct. This fits right outside of the distance needed.
Okay, okay. From other permitted uses or other
Correct. Yep.
potential sites of concern. But in general, it does meet the requirement as it stands.
It does.
Because that is, to a certain degree, that is the purpose of the zoning ordinance, so there's not a proliferation of these, like 3 of them in a row or something like that, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
The actual distance being 1,350
There we go.
feet from a similar use, and this happens to be slightly greater than that. It is greater, although it is slightly.
Yeah.
And then the other separation distance being that from the 500 feet from the schools, place of
Okay.
worship, parks, et cetera.
Okay. There's no distance requirement for dairies? Okay.
For what?
For dairies.
Oh.
Or cows of certain names, which I can't remember their 2 names. East Siders?
Plastic cows.
What's the names of the cows?
I don't know.
Annie and Eric, duh, should have known that. And just a final related one, with that distance requirement, looking at the use itself, the sketch that was shown that shows the floor plan, is that to scale or is that just kind of a reference sketch?
That would be more of a reference sketch.
Okay, okay.
And so they did have square footages in there.
Okay.
That points to what they are representative of.
Okay,
So you
all right.
could piece that together, but.
Yeah, yeah. I just wasn't clear how a beer cave appears to be barely larger in width than a grocery store shelf. So I was just trying to see how the pieces would fit together inside. Okay, I can ask applicants some more on that. Okay, anything else for Frank? All right, thank you for the background on this one. So what we do for the hearing now, the applicant or representative of the applicant has up to 10 minutes to present their case and their reasoning for their request for the conditional use. And we'll just need them to start off with their name, address, and you've got the floor.
Lloyd Ogle, 301 East Walnut Street, Des Moines. I'm representing my client on this. First, I want to mention that there might have been some misunderstanding with some of those comments because they mentioned a liquor store. and this is not a liquor store or anything close to it, it's a grocery store. And the overwhelming amount of square footage then there is devoted to groceries. A small grocer like this, in order to, the margin on food is very, very tight. And you need some of those alcohol sales to help support that business. But it's a full grocery store, it's going to have fresh produce, it's going to have a small kitchen, there's going to be frozen food and dairy. It will not feel like a convenience store, it will not feel like a liquor store. And they've chosen this location because they feel it's the type of groceries and stuff they're going to provide is to be marketed as a university market, that they feel it's going to serve an underserved demographic in that area. And we think there'll be a good demand for it. In terms of the parking, I don't know what it was like with Dollar General, or, like the neighboring restaurant. People, it's about 7,000 square feet, will probably get in and out of there pretty quick. We're not anticipating a lot of congestion in that parking lot. And I can try and answer any questions. My clients are here as well. We could certainly address any questions you might have as well.
Questions from Mr. Ogle?
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead, Marlis.
Aldi is only about 4 blocks from there, so are they going to sell groceries that are different than what Aldi?
Yeah, there'll be a lot of international considered it's not going to be called an international grocery store, but there'll be a lot of product that you would not typically see at Aldi's.
And does your client agree with these?
You just got to pull it closer to you so we
Okay.
can hear you. There we go.
And does your client agree with these 14 items?
They do. Now, they had requested 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., and they're fine with the shortening the time period. The main reason for that is it really depends on what the traffic is like. They anticipate they're serving people working second shifts and stuff, and wanted to at least have flexibility to try and be open, but depending on what demand is, they might not be open that late. They're not going to be open just to sell alcohol. It's a grocery store.
Okay, thank you.
Lloyd, I appreciate your kind of synopsis on this one. Just a couple things for clarification. I mentioned to staff, and we got the picture up there. I see the intent of the floor plan, but to the best of your knowledge, is this to scale on the floor plan?
I don't
or is
know
it
if it's exactly to scale.
kind of
but Square
reference?
footage should be
Okay.
correct. So the beer cooler, 400 square feet, wine, 200 square feet, tobacco,
Okay.
100 square feet, liquor, 400 square feet. The rest of the square footage is going to be devoted to food and other sales.
Okay. So I see looks like there's 7 aisles of grocery here. I mean, that's pretty substantial, right? That's
It's a pretty big space.
Yeah.
It's over 7,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And the pictures on the outside, I mean, because it goes pretty far over, you think part of it, look at the front, might be the restaurant. It's not. Most of that entire building is that Dollar General space. It's pretty large.
Yeah. Related to the conditions that Marlis had noted and you referenced, condition number 3 discusses no visible advertisement, identification, kind of like, in essence, gratuitous alcohol signage. You and your client are okay with that?
Yes, we understand that.
Okay. And again, the intent is there, I think, and maybe not to put words in your mouth, but hey, this is a grocery store, this isn't a liquor store. So
It'll be
you're not-
marketed as a grocery store.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
true.
you're not going to have neon beer signs in the window or anything like that. Okay. All right, any other questions for Lloyd? Okay, thank you for your summary. Okay, so the way this now works, is there anybody that wishes to speak in support of the applicant's request? If anybody wants to speak in support of this conditional use request, they can have up to 5 minutes. Anybody wishes to speak? Okay, seeing none, is there anybody that wishes to speak in opposition to the applicant's request? Come on up. We just need your name and address to start off, and you've got up to 5 minutes.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Carolyn Farrell, 2219 East University, Dairy Zone. Well, when we originally got notice of this, to us it seemed like just a liquor store. But still, going back to the liquor store, we do not need more liquor on East University. We have, currently, there are 2 liquor stores within 6 blocks of this location. There are 8 bars within a mile. And I've been in the business with Dairy Zone. I've been an owner since 1985. And I do not want this traffic of people staying there till midnight. We've already had to call the cops several times this year on drunk people walking around, scaring our customers, popping out of bushes. And I just think if we have that much liquor and we have a beer cave, it seems more to me, I'm okay with the grocery store, but I don't know why we need liquor and tobacco and beer. If you want to help the neighborhood, then get rid of the liquor. We do not need any more liquor. And they're saying 40% of their sales in liquor. That seems pretty high standard to me. So maybe if they condense it down, I don't know what the final vote's going to be, but 40% of the revenue, that's a lot of liquor, guys. And I think we're going to have more problems. And I really don't want this store up until midnight. We have enough problems watching our own business and what damage we have done to it, not to add to people stopping by at midnight. If people are out at midnight, it's not good. They should just be home. I guess that's all that I have to say. I thought the Fairground neighborhood was opposing this because I've spoke with them, so I don't know why that never came through. Because they're the ones that kind of gave me a lead on this. So I don't know what happened. But thank you, and that's all I have to say.
So Carolyn, if we have any questions, would you be willing to answer a few
Oh,
questions?
sure.
Not that that's necessary, but
Sure.
just in case. Anybody have any questions for Carolyn? Okay. All right. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate you coming down today. Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Anybody else that wishes to speak in opposition? Okay, seeing none, do we have any further questions for staff? Don't see any there. Applicant or their representative, you could have a rebuttal or closing comments for up to 3 minutes if you so choose.
Again, we just want to emphasize that the purpose of this location is a grocery store. We do need alcohol sales to support a grocery store. You can't make the margins work without it.
Right.
We don't anticipate 40% of our revenue is going to come from alcohol sales. But our margins, our largest margin is going to come from the alcohol sales, but most of these sales is going to be, it's a grocery store. People might come in and get their 6-pack, get their bottle of water, their wine when they order stuff, but it truly, we're intending to market this as a grocery store.
Okay. And Lloyd, while you're back here, and I'm sure give your client some good information, advice on all of this, but your client's aware that with a conditional use, if we do approve this and say yes, it's kind of like, let's say, having a driver's license. If you abuse it and staff says, hey, they're abusing these conditions, they can come back and potentially we could revoke that. Then they can't sell any liquor or alcohol. Your client's aware of that?
They understand that. They're going to be a several $100,000 investment in this site.
Okay. And without trying to do Eric's job, when it's no more than 40%, if for some reason there was kind of a concern of that, the city could request an audit of the books in essence, and your client's aware of that as well?
Certainly.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, Marlis.
I just have one. We always have the comment in here about posting the no loitering. The issue, I believe, comes of actually administering that and actually dealing with it, confronting a person who's doing that. Have you had any conversation with your client that they are able to do that?
I haven't had a specific conversation with them about it. They're here, they could come, and I'd make one suggestion. I don't know if it's in the CUP, but we could certainly sign the authorization from the police that allows them to automatically enforce the loitering laws without our presence. And I don't know if that's common to write it into a CUP or if that's a problem, but I do have other clients that have had that arrangement with the police, and it seemed to work well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lloyd. Okay, so we'll close the public portion and go to board deliberation. Board members, any initial thoughts?
Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Justin.
Thank you. It appears that, that they're going to be following the zoning requirements in terms of, distance between other liquor stores. And it is a conditional use, so as you pointed out, if there is a problem in the future, there are proper channels to be taken, and then that conditional use can be revoked or, really severely restricted. So I am fine with moving forward with approving this conditional use, subject to the conditions laid out.
Sure. Any other thoughts?
And I really agree with that. I don't like it. I think it's redundant, but I really don't see how I cannot vote for it.
I kind of agree and see the same way, but I'm thinking it's not going to be a big loitering problem. It's a grocery, get in, get out type of thing and go. It's not a bar of a sort or somebody hanging out there. If they do, having the police on call and that kind of stuff would be a good solution for them too. I kind of like that too.
Sure. I do want to throw one thing in. I do know we had some opposition here today, and I always like to hear both sides of the coin on any kind of issue, but I give staff some credit here that looking to have some limitation in the operating hours, 5 nights a week, closed by 10, and no later than midnight. We've had some, they want to be 24/7, or they want to be open till 2 a.m., or whatever the case is. And also no signage in the windows. I think we're trying to go, if it's a neighborhood market, a neighborhood grocery, that's what it should probably look like at face value. So I just want to make sure we certainly understand, but that's why we have conditions on things. So we can look at that. So, Dave, motion then?
Yes.
Okay, that was a motion to grant the requested conditional use subject to staff rec? Is that correct? Then I will go ahead and second that. All right, so we got a motion and a second. All those in favor of granting the motion, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. You guys get kicked off on the right foot. You should be an asset to the neighborhood for providing a variety of things for folks, and work closely with your neighbors. They've been there a long time, and I've been there many a times for the best ice cream on the east side of town. So, yeah. I don't want to tick off the Beaverdale folks with their local one. Okay, so that concludes our agenda items for any cases today. And then, Frank, let's see, business, we'd have minutes first, and then elections. Anything else? Okay, so for those that were here at the hearing last month, if you reviewed the minutes, are there any changes? If none, would there be a motion to grant approval of the minutes? Motion by Rhonda, second by Marlis. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Who were here? That's 5 of us. So it's everybody minus Tom. He wasn't here. Is that good enough, Tyler? Okay, yep, it's everybody but Tom. All right, so then motion carries for the minutes. Okay, so at this time of the year, annually, the board members elect 2 officers. Those officers really don't do anything different on making decisions than any of the board members. But generally speaking, the chair of the board chairs the meeting, giving the background, laying out the agenda items, participation of the audience, and sometimes keeping control of the time. And if the chair is not available, then the vice chair would carry out those duties. And that's basically it. So what we generally do is we elect the chair first. And certainly I've enjoyed serving as chair for a term or 2. If there's anybody else that would want to do it, great. But I've certainly enjoyed and would be happy to continue. But the floor is open to nominations for all and anyone. Does anybody want to make a nomination for chair?
I nominate Mel Pence.
Oh, Marlis, you're too kind.
I'll
Would there be a
nominate
second?
Mel Peck,
Okay,
yes.
so there's a second. Before we vote, would there be nomination of any other candidates? Okay, seeing none. So a motion for Pins for chair. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to vote for myself. Just wasn't sure if Tom was going to come over or not. All right, that motion carries
Chair?
0. Yes, sir.
I'd like to nominate David Greer for vice chair.
Okay, all right, so nomination of Dave for vice chair. I've heard that before. I try to be here, but I have been gone, and both our vice chair, like Nathan and Dave, has stepped in before to do the chair. So, all right, we got a nomination by Justin for Dave, and would there be a second? I'll give that to Tom. His hand was up first. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. So, Dave, you're officially chair of the or vice chair of Zoning Board of Adjustment. That's awesome. If that's good for the record, I think that concludes our elections. And if there's no other business, then this hearing is adjourned.